You're watching Live Now. I'm Austin Westfall. Live look at the White House, 7:15 in the nation's capital. Today, markets reacting sharply to a fresh flare-up in transatlantic tensions amid President Trump's efforts to own Greenland. Today was the first day of trading since the president aggressively renewed threats against European allies. The Wall Street Journal saying that stocks slumped after the president stepped up his campaign to take over Greenland and threatened new restrictions on trade with Europe, should he not get his way. The Dow plunging nearly 900 points today. Standing by is Anna Rathbun. She's the founder and CEO of Grenadilla Advisory. So today's sell-off was tied less to earnings and more to headlines after the U.S. signaled new tariff pressure on several European countries. What specifically do markets fear most in a moment like this?
Well, before she gets in, FearlessDisease fam, today we expose the truth they hate to hear. Like right now, if you are ready, as you see, major stock indexes plunge after Trump threatens, some massive tariffs on Europe. If they don't hand over Greenland, I mean, he said 900. I was thinking around like 800. Actually, the Dow Jones went down in hours. I mean, it went down very fast as soon as the market opened up. But the Nasdaq, it actually went up. And then after a while, after the hypeness went up, it ultimately plummeted down as well. But Dow did it first, which I understand. So she may give him some more insight on it. But of course, Trump is making a lot of noise in every realm right now, especially the stock market. But let's hear what she has to say.
Well, this was more of a liberation part 2 or a deja vu from last year. It's an introduction of additional uncertainty. If you think about since April 2nd of last year,
I don't think it's an uncertainty. I think that Trump knows exactly what he's doing. I don't think it's an uncertainty. I think everything's going to come back just like it usually does. It's just to give a little scarcity in some people's minds, but everything's going to be just fine.
Tariffs were introduced, negotiated downward, and it was pretty quiet for a while as the nations actually work out the details. And then suddenly the tariffs are back, right? So business leaders actually need some certainty in the rules of the game in order to plan out for the next 6 months or a year so that the companies can grow. When rules of the game change on a dime like this, it's difficult to plan, it's difficult to hire, it's difficult to invest, it's difficult to run companies. And I think that's one of the things that the markets were expressing today is the sudden onset of some of the uncertainty that's coming from the tariff policy or onset of tariffs in general.
Was this
No, I disagree. I mean, we have terrorists, but they're going to keep playing around. I think it's more of a mind game. It's an algorithm, and the big money makers are actually playing around with the market. They can dumb it down so people can get out, and then, of course, they know when it's going to double down. It's going to go down as low as it can, and it's going to pick right back up. And the big movers in the market, they'll be able to buy back up. I think it's all a game. America's doing just fine, but I think it's easy to make people like her scared, and what she's throwing out is to make all other Americans scared as well. That's what I really think it is.
a plunge impacting multiple industries, or did we see certain industries get affected more than others?
Yeah, it was a classic sell-off, which means that more growth-oriented stocks like tech stocks sold off more, whereas consumer staples, which is normally considered to be defensive sector, actually did better, lost less, and those would be your grocery stores basically. So, under the hood, it actually showed the classic signs of a risk-off, where investors really, if you didn't really understand the future earnings like growth stocks, maybe it was sell now and think later.
I agree.
Europe has said, and I believe it was Emmanuel Macron earlier today.
It says S&P falls, S&P 500 falls 2.1%, steepest drop since October. Yeah, it's going to do that. I predicted this. It was going to do this. It was going to go up real high over the holiday season. As soon as Q1 hit, it's going to dip down, and it's going to flourish right back up around the second quarter. I predicted this 100% of my last videos.
He was kind of giving us some insight into some of the tools that Europe has to respond with economic pressure. Macron recently said that the EU could retaliate by deploying one of its most powerful economic tools. He called it a trade bazooka. What would be the first place, Anna, you'd expect to see real economic damage
A
if
trade
this turns
bazooka is
into
wild.
a larger sustained trade conflict?
You know, my expectation is that it's actually not going to turn into a sustained trade conflict. And here's why.
Not at
First
all.
of all, we're still waiting from the Supreme Court to understand whether or not this type of tariffs from the executive branch is even constitutional. And that can come at any time. It was actually supposed to come, a few days ago, last Friday, and it didn't come. So there's a lot to be here that would need to be flushed out to begin with. And secondly, if we learned anything from last year, the Liberation Day, sell-off, what we had was big tariffs that were announced, and then subsequently people getting together, sitting in front of each other. In conference rooms, I presume, to work out the details and work out a deal. Now, it's inefficient to do it the second time, especially since they've been working all through last year. But I imagine that is where we're going to be headed. I don't think we're going to see any kind of bazooka from Europe. And I don't think we're going to be, I hope not, alienating our friends in Europe. There are more than one way, which is taking over Greenland, to actually have military support in that island with NATO, with Europe. So I imagine that they'll be looking for a resolution.
I mean, very true. Whether they like it or not, calling Greenland strategic for security and resources, while Europe calls it extortion. That's the 100% of what's going on. And like you said, they have NATO. It's a lot going on, but I don't think it has anything to do with the tariffs. I mean, tariffs are working just the way they need to, and America's going to bounce back in that second quarter 100%.
President Trump is heading to the World Economic Forum in Switzerland, and he's going to be speaking there tomorrow. What is the most important signal, in your opinion, that the White House needs to send at the forum in order to prevent Greenland from turning into a wider economic crisis?
I would love to see signs of real leadership. And by that, what I mean is, yes, Europe does, you need the United States, but we
They
need
do.
Europe too. So
True.
some semblance of cooperation, maybe led by U.S. military, because the U.S. military might is unmatched all around the world, right?
Yeah.
But it really will take a lot of cooperation on Greenland to secure a military prowess. Because if you do look at the map, Greenland is an important point in the Arctic region. But I would love to see some leadership, some language that would help rally the troops rather than to divide. I think that's really important at this juncture, especially when we're dealing with not just Greenland, not just Russia and Ukraine, but also the Middle East. There are a lot of things around the world that makes investors nervous. And so that would actually help to calm the markets.
Are there any specific countries you're looking for reaction from? I mentioned it was France's Macron that mentioned that economic bazooka idea, but are there other countries that you're keeping an eye on?
Yeah, so apparently Denmark is not coming.
No.
So I can't keep an eye on them right now. But
True.
Germany, certainly. And the reason why I
Still
say this
Europe.
is because no matter how much France wants to send a bazooka, I do think that Germany will keep some of the hot, fiery rhetoric at bay.
Yeah.
Germany is an exporting country, not unlike China. They need people to buy things, so tariffs will actually impact them a lot. And anything that escalates is going to impact their economy. So I would be looking for language from Germany and certainly calming rhetoric from Germany as well. And I think they'll be the calming factor.
You know,
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. But the big question is this a real tariff threat? I don't think so at all. Because the markets, they kind of have a right to freak, but it's not on the point of because of the tariffs. I think the mask on the person is actually the tariffs. So what's really under it is just big market movers are actually doing what they need to do behind the scenes. It has nothing to do with tariffs. I don't think so personally. Europe is one of our biggest trading partners, as you said in there, and they are. I mean, they're a powerhouse. That's why the euro is always higher than the dollar. This is how it is. In the negotiations, they're threatened for Greenland's leverage and stocks rebounds very fast. I think so, at least in the second quarter. Trump just reminded Wall Street who's boss in 2026. He's moving the strings behind because don't you forget, he's a big player in the game as well. I know he has people in the behind the scenes, and he's always been in stocks. He's always been a big heavy hitter when it comes to investments. We know you are, boss. That's why he Trump. He do what he got to do. But let me see what you guys think. Smash the like, tap the next video here on the screen, subscribe, and hit that bell. CashApp FearlessDisease always in the description if you're rocking with the movement. We will see you on the next one. Please stay rich and stay fearless.